Hi, Gene Monterastelli here, the editor of tappingqanda.com. The video that you are about to watch is a conversation that was a part of this year's 24 Hours of Tapping. The 24 Hours of Tapping is a fundraiser for the amazing work that is done by the Peaceful Heart Network. The Peaceful Heart Network has brought tapping to migrants, refugees, prisoners, and the underprivileged in over 30 countries all over the world. As you watch this video, if you learned something, if you were touched by it, if you were inspired by it, the easiest way to say thank you is to support the work of the Peaceful Heart Network. To do that, all you need to do is go to 24hoursoftapping.com/support. And as you look in the description and the first comment down below, you will see a direct link to that. I hope you enjoy this conversation. When I started my EFT journey, part of my learning was listening to her weekly blog talk radio show. And so it is my great honor and my great pleasure to welcome to the 24 Hours of Tapping stage, my friend, Carol Look. One of the things that I love doing, and I've been doing it all day with all the conversations that we've been having, is I always like to know the way people define words, that when we have a conversation about that thing, we're on the same platform. Not that you and I have to agree on a definition, but in order for us to have a dynamic conversation, I'd love to hear where you're coming from. We use the word abundance a lot in transformation. We've used it for decades. When you think of the word abundance, when you're using the word abundance, how do you define that in your own life, in your work, working with your clients, however you want to approach that? For you, what does abundance mean?
It's a vibration. It's a vibration of depth and happiness and passion and excitement and looking forward and optimism and joy and gratitude, all of the above, which then does bring the financial abundance, but people are too hooked on the financial stuff. They get tuned into that and hooked into that and get upset by it because it's not coming in. Well, that's not what abundance is. That's financial wealth, and that's fine, and it will come, but you've got to be vibrationally abundant, which means not scarce, not uptight, not stressed out, right? So that's my definition, is the vibration of abundance.
Yeah. And the thing I love about that is that is moving our attention to the place that I have the most control. You know, I share a planet with 7.8 billion inconsistent, unpredictable, fickle other creatures. And even with the best laid plans, they won't go the way that we want them to go always, especially when we're depending on others, but going, okay, great. The place I am going to start with this is I'm going to start with this from a place inside out. How do I feel? Because that's the thing that I control the most. And I love that fact, because so often, when I'm teaching surrogate tapping, people are like, well, how can I tap to change so-and-so in my life? And it's like, well, it's not that. And the same is true with circumstance and the things that we're able to access and be open to. I recognize the fact that it's so much easier for me to recognize good things when my eyes are open and I believe good things are possible, because there's so much of that swirling around me. And so by working from the inside out makes so much sense as just a starting point as the definition.
It makes sense. And then P.S. everybody, it's what works.
Right.
That's what I like. We're not just trying to make you feel better so you're not in a bad mood. It's the thing that works if you want the financial abundance to follow. And getting that, it was the hardest thing for me. And it's very hard to communicate to clients sometimes. But once they get it, once they get a whiff of it, it's like, oh, now I see what you're talking about.
And so then if we're using that as a starting point, I think one of the things that is hard is being an eyewitness to our own experience. Because our own experience, it's hard to tell, the beliefs and the ideas that I hold in my subconscious mind is operating as if that is universal capital T truth.
Yes.
And so I'm operating out of that. And that makes sense in the way that we've evolved as creatures. All of that makes sense. But it then makes it hard for me to know, when am I in that juicy, abundant mindset? And when am I not? When is my fear a actual practical fear? Or when is my fear disproportionate, which is causing me to play small and I'm missing opportunities? So then how do we then, once we accept that, okay, this is an inside job that I'm going to transform from the inside out, how do we then start in kind of understanding where is the entry point of either highlighting what is already good, or recognizing the blocks? Like, what's kind of the first step into that particular piece of it?
Well, sometimes how I approach it with people is say, how do you like your results? Because they'll say, well, how do I know if I have limiting beliefs or feelings that
Right.
are in play, my behaviors, I'm procrastinating? I say, well, do you like your results? No. Well, your results come from 3 areas: your emotions, your beliefs, and your behaviors.
Mhm.
Our society is kind of obsessed with the behavioral part,
Right.
right? Clean out the closet, lose the weight, do this and do that. And it doesn't work because it can't stick when you have the feelings and the beliefs that don't support it. So I say, look at your results. And if you don't like them, okay, I understand you've got the behaviors. We have to back into the entry point, as you say, beliefs and feelings. You go in there and you'll change the behavior, which changes the results that you want to see in your life.
And it makes sense that in a lot of ways that, sometimes we have it backwards, because the actions are the easiest things for us to measure.
Of course.
And oftentimes, like, even when I'm helping folks out, I might even start out tactically, because sometimes you have emotional resistance because, like, I'm afraid to do this thing because I don't know how to do this thing. Well, if I teach you how to do the thing, you're no longer emotionally scared to do it, because that's the case. But once I know what to do, I know how to do it and have the resources to do it. If I'm not taking action, that immediately tells me, okay, we need to go to this other place. But, like, I sometimes have a hard enough time, like, evaluating my emotional state, much less trying to figure it out. So it makes sense that I'm leading into the actions that I'm taking. And so then, as we kind of step into this in that way, okay, so we recognize the fact, the actions, I'm not getting the results I want because the actions I'm taking are not leading me there. How then do I start to unpack the feelings and the emotions? Do I do them in a particular order, and, like, or I guess the feelings and the beliefs, the emotions and the beliefs? And how do I, like, know the difference between those two? And does it matter if I know the difference between those two?
I think it does matter eventually, but how I start is say, so you've told me that you don't like the results.
Yep.
Your behavior is procrastinating or being a perfectionist or a people pleaser or clutter, whatever it is, or you're addicted to food or whatever. Now we say, I always ask them, what's the upside to procrastination? What do you mean?
Yeah.
I hate procrastination. What's the upside to clutter? What do you mean? I hate my clutter. I've come to you to try to. Well, it's doing something for you. And from that question, you'll get either a feeling or belief. So that's why sometimes I say, oh, we could start with the feelings or the beliefs, but asking the question and getting the answer will reveal, because I'm scared to be successful, or being successful is dangerous. So the fear, I'm scared to be successful. That would be an emotion. I'm convinced that success is dangerous. Then you've got a belief, and they're, always intertwined, right? But that's how we find it. Either what's the upside of the behavior you're doing that's giving you the results you don't like, or what's the downside of getting over it? What do you mean? Of course I want to get over it. Why do you think I'm coming to a group or a workshop or a right?
And
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that natural resistance, I think, like, for me, one of the ways I short circuit that natural resistance is, I know you don't know the answer to this question, but if you did, what's the upside of it? I know you don't think there's an upside of it, but if there was an upside of it, what might that be? And giving them, or giving ourselves permission, because, like, I am so frustrated with being stuck here. Like, it can almost feel like you even did it with your voice, like, oh, there's not this, like, that it can almost, like, feel accusatory when we ask someone that question. So what's the upside of doing this? Where, like, I, as a practitioner, I'm just trying to suss something out, but because they want change so badly, they're like, what do you mean? Like, it makes sense that it could get that visceral response in that particular way.
Which is good. So
Yeah.
I don't get I don't accuse them. They don't usually react with feeling that way. But when I can turn it around and say, look, we all do behaviors we don't like. We all end up with results we don't like. What I found in 30 years of practice is that we're trying to protect ourselves. And then they go, let me see if I get on that. We're trying to stay safe. Poor human beings. We're just trying to stay safe.
Yeah.
And we're trying to protect ourselves. So I say, as an example, procrastination, or anything you're doing where you're getting in your own way. Procrastination is doing something positive for you. It's protecting me. Then they start going down. But the level of the reaction is important. It's like when I used to do weight loss a lot, and I'd say to people, what if I told you that you couldn't have your chocolate cake for dessert? And they'd get angry. I said, I didn't take it away from you.
Right.
I'm just saying, what if someone told you you couldn't have your chocolate?
Yeah.
And the level of response is really informative. So what's the upside of it? What do you think it might be doing for you? It's not doing it. After 2 or 3 people who object, after 2 or 3 times, they go, huh, you got a point. I'm pretty sure that the thought of my shining or standing out or being successful is threatening in some way. Then we pull on the thread. How is it threatening? When did it happen before? Who might be upset with your success? Oh, are you kidding? My sister, my brother, my somebody will be. And then they go, no wonder I'm getting in my own way. That's the point I love, is when they go, oh, no wonder I've been getting in my own way. That's a really important turning point.
And one other thing I want to highlight in what you just said there, this has come up in a number of the conversations over the course of the 24 hours here, is this idea of pulling over the thread and kind of stepping our way into it. Like, most of us, when we are formed in tapping, we are told be as specific as possible. And we then misconstrue that into, I am only successful if I am specific. And this idea of, okay, what's the first thing that is presenting to me? The first thing that is presenting to me is this emotional reaction to something. Great. Then we find the belief behind that emotional reaction, and we respond to that, which gives us the next layer, and it gives us the next layer, and it gives us the next layer. And I just think it's so affirming for those of us who are trying to create transformation to move it away from, I have to hit the bullseye immediately. We're going to have a 1-minute miracle. We're going to do it that quickly. Like, that's possible. I've seen it. You've seen it, but like changing our expectations as we're engaging with that then becomes something that's really, really useful.
It's all information. And when somebody can't get specific, to follow that line of thinking, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Ask 47 questions and waste an hour trying to. We can only get where we can get. And what we know from the tapping is, you get the first layer, then they can see the second layer. But they can't see the third layer when they're on the first layer, because we're appropriately defended. Defense mechanisms are to keep us safe and protected. So it's okay if they say, well, I think it's because I just don't want, so-and-so to be upset. And then it turns out there's a pretty big deal that happened when they were 15 in high school. And somebody said something to them when they were standing out. And we get to that eventually, but there's no point hammering anybody, because you're not going to get anywhere.
And when that happens, like, there's 2 ways that it shows up that I absolutely love. One is where you can like actually see it on the client's face, where like, like you can like they're just, their face is telling on them, where this thing is dawning on them. Or like my single favorite phrase a client will ever say in the history of the world, this probably has nothing to do with it, but. And if something comes up in the course of doing this investigation and we are surprised by it, ding, 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 like all the red lights are flashing at that point, going, great. And it isn't necessarily the core issue, and it isn't necessarily the end of that thread. It's just the next piece of that thread that's presented itself that we get to step into, and recognizing that the incremental change also shows up in our world, that we don't have to do it all at once.
Not all at once. And my version of, when you say your clients say this probably has nothing to do with it, my version is when people say, well, that's weird. I haven't thought about this in years. Right?
That's right. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good way to go.
So then once we have found one of those stories, one of those beliefs, one of those things that's kicking around in there, great, I found the thing. What do I then do with that story, that belief, that thing that's now presented itself, where I see I'm now at layer 2 or layer 3 or whatever layer I am at as I'm unpacking this?
So let's say if we started with the fear, my favorite word is because. So they say, oh, this thing happened and I wonder if it's related. And that's weird. I haven't thought about that. But when I was 12 and blah, 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 they keep going. And I say, so finish this sentence. I'm afraid to be successful because, and they go, because don't you know they're going to hurt me?
Yeah.
So that's the way to do it for a feeling. And we can tap on that, right? Fear of shining, afraid to be successful. Or they say, I'm convinced, they say a version of a belief, and they say, I'm convinced that if I'm successful, and sometimes I start the sentence with that. I said, just finish this off. I'm convinced that if I'm successful, ... And they go, my father's going to have a fit. Oh, really? Or my sister or my colleague is going to be upset with me because. So then that's how they, the light starts to shine and they say, got it. I am protecting myself. Now, what do we do with it? And then here we go. We start to tap on the belief, the conviction, or the emotion, right? The fear, because you wouldn't protect yourself unless it was scary out there, unless it was like, great idea. I've got all the technology. I've got all the learning. I bought a program about it, etc. And then, yes, but you're not following through. That's what we want.
Yeah. And you're using that because, like, I in my work, I've actually taken that because statement and I now do 4 of them. It's not safe for me to be successful because I'm not allowed to be successful because I'm not worthy of success because I'm not deserving of success because, and just giving myself to just like keep coming at it all of these ways, because if I don't feel safe, allowed, worthy, or deserved of the action or the outcome, we're going to protect ourselves from having that thing that feels dangerous. The subconscious level, fear always wins.
Always. So people will often say to me a very clear because somebody will be mad at me. And then I say, and the problem with someone being mad at me is this.
Yeah.
Or if you're mad at me, it's dangerous because. So I put my becauses in differently.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they're unpacking it very, very clearly. They don't feel threatened.
Yeah.
They're unpacking it clearly. And then they're like, well, of course I don't want to stand out in my field, whatever their field is. Of course, it's a little dangerous. And then we're there. Then we're there. Either the feeling or the belief. And sometimes a feeling and a belief come up at the same time because they're so entwined.
Yeah. Right? And it's easy going, and so why is that bad? And so why is that bad? And so why is that bad? And the other thing, like, that I found from my own lived experience is that things are so much more dangerous in my head than they are when they come out of my mouth. Like dragging them into the light of day. Gary Craig used to talk about the comedies of our minds, and they like feel like farce to me, like this thing that is holding me back. And I say it out loud and I'm like, really? That's the thing I'm afraid of right now. And sometimes just like answering the questions that you're talking about or going down that path sometimes takes some or all of the sting out of the thing that's happening. And one of the things that, like, I need to keep reminding myself of, because I'm breaking a habit, is so often when I work with clients, we'll go through the questioning that you're doing and like, okay, great. Now tap on the side of your hand, take a nice big deep breath, where it just makes so much more sense that as we're doing this investigation, just tapping your collarbone while we investigate a little bit, then let's continue that, because we're tuning into, like, those questions are so beautiful and so precise. We can utilize them while we're asking them, as well as reframing them after the fact.
Well, absolutely. Never lose an opportunity to tap on the stress that when we're sitting in the other chair, we can see start to come up. Now they might feel it, but we can see it in a microsecond. It's like right there. So yes,
I literally have a client without my prompting. From the moment we are on the Zoom call to the moment we are off the Zoom call, she is tapping somewhere as we're doing something, unless she's taking a sip of water. And it's just like such a great model for us as we engage with that.
Good. So we could do some tapping. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. If you could just lead us in some tapping, like we're at that spot in this particular thought process. So.
Sure. So we could start with, I'm afraid of success because. You could give an answer that's true or not true.
Yep.
Like you could just my guinea pig, my echo. And then we'll see if another belief comes out. So that's the thing you want to follow as the clinician. Am I following a feeling or a belief? Because the language is different.
Yep. And awesome. Yeah.
You don't want to be too vague or too general, because then the person's like, oh, that's an interesting story. They go away and say it's an interesting story, but nothing shifted energetically. So we want to make sure that energetics.
So as you said that, the thing that just popped into my head really quickly is, if I have success, I'm going to lose it, and that's going to be painful.
Yes. Okay. So that's so the fear of success is true. The belief is, when I get it, I'll lose it, and that's painful.
Yep.
So what I would do is then say, which one would you rather work on first?
The belief that it will be taken away, because, and again, this is just Gene's practitioner brain going, that I know that when that belief goes away, the fear is going to evaporate, because in my mind, again, this is Gene over intellectualizing, and we have clients who do that. Like, that would be my entry point, and that's why.
Good. The beliefs are the biggest bang for the buck. We all do feelings. We all do beliefs. The beliefs are where you can turn your life around.
Yeah.
Feelings make you feel better, less stressed, able to take the next few steps. The beliefs are the game changer.
Yeah.
So, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So your belief, your conviction is when you get successful, it will be taken away.
Mhm.
Let's measure it for fun, 0 to 10. How convicted are you of that? How true does that feel to you?
6.
6. Okay. So at a 6, I say to people, if you're at a 6, the likelihood of you following through is pretty low. When
Mhm.
you get into the 4, 3, 2, you'll follow through, but a 6 is very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Very, very uncomfortable. Okay. So here we go. Side of the hand as usual.
And everybody tap along with us.
Please, please, please. Even though I'm convinced if I get successful, it'll be taken away.
Even though I'm convinced if I get successful, it'll be taken away.
No wonder I'm keeping a lid on it.
No wonder I'm keeping a lid on it.
I accept who I am and how I feel.
I accept who I am and how I feel.
Even though I'm convinced in my body that when I become successful,
Even though I'm convinced in my body when I become successful,
it's just going to be taken away.
it's just going to be taken away.
So why bother?
So why bother?
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I'm afraid to be successful
I'm afraid to be successful
because I think it'll be taken away.
because I think it'll be taken away.
So there's where we can transition. We can do feeling, belief, back and forth. I'm afraid to be successful
I'm afraid to be successful
because I know it's going to be taken away.
because I know it's going to be taken away.
I worry that it'll be taken away.
I worry that it'll be taken away.
Now I know why I'm sabotaging myself
Now I know why I'm sabotaging myself
because I'm worried it's going to be taken away.
because I'm worried it's going to be taken away.
If I become successful,
If I become successful,
more successful,
more successful,
I'm convinced it'll be taken away.
I'm convinced it'll be taken away.
And I don't want to deal with that pain.
And I don't want to deal with that pain.
And of course, it reminds me of something else,
And of course, it reminds me of something else,
something in my past.
something in my past.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
Deep breath.
So it was interesting, and this happens sometimes when we do something like this, and I think it's good to normalize this, is the intensity is actually more.
Yes. Good.
And which just means that, like, oh, I have some more clarity. Like, as we're doing that and you're tacking on, like, oh, something in the past happened, and like I could feel in there like something 9, 10, 11, and 12-ish. Don't have a memory, don't have a connection to it, but it was just like, first as we were tapping, like, just like the intensity was growing bigger here, and then it was almost just like a sun that was turning up, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm in this place and there's this sense of sadness. And so, like, emotionally, I'm more, not that I can't continue, but emotionally there's more distress than
Yes.
there was before we started tapping, which in my mind's good because it means that we're closer to figuring out what's going on because that's the case.
Very uncomfortable, but good, because that means that you were a little too distant. It was a bit too
Yep.
intellectual before, or some kind of distance was there. And now it's like, oh, I'm in it now.
Yeah.
I'm there now. So we'll go right to this. Even though my body remembers what happened before,
Even though my body remembers what happened before,
they took it away from me.
they took it away from me.
I deeply and completely accept myself anyway.
I deeply and completely accept myself anyway.
Even though I've been protecting myself from success,
Even though I've been protecting myself from success,
because I don't want to get hurt again.
because I don't want to get hurt again.
And my body remembers what happened last time.
And my body remembers what happened last time.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Eyebrow, I remember what happened last time.
I remember what happened last time.
No wonder I'm protecting myself.
No wonder I'm protecting myself.
I don't want that to happen again.
I don't want that to happen again.
They took it away from me.
They took it away from me.
And I remember what it felt like.
And I remember what it felt like.
I was so disappointed.
I was so disappointed.
I don't want that to happen again.
I don't want that to happen again.
No wonder I'm blocking myself.
No wonder I'm blocking myself.
And no wonder I'm afraid.
And no wonder I'm afraid.
Deep breath.
And so it's interesting, like, as I find that younger part, there are no more details. There's no more clarity but that part doesn't like, I can like the intensity as I tune into that part, like it's less fear, there's a little sadness that's in the mix there, but it's receding in a way which again is really lovely, like where like so often like when we're doing group work, like, well, you don't need to be specific, so I don't want you to do that sort of stuff. Like at this point, like I'm doing the work for myself and we
Yes.
still haven't gotten to specific, and I still don't know what this is about, but I can feel that thing get, now it's like kind of went, and we're still big, but we're like heading back down that curve as we're engaging in this particular way.
And you knew, your body knew. You didn't have to know.
Yeah.
I was 14 and the person took away the money, blah, blah, blah. You didn't have to know the details. What you
Yeah.
had to know is that the topic made you feel a little sick,
Yeah.
right?
And the other thing I think it's really important for us to underline there before we do a little tapping is like the subconscious mind wants to know what went wrong in the past so we can prevent it in the future.
Yes.
And sometimes we can be in a circumstance where I'm going to prevent my healing until I understand because I don't want it to happen again. But the reality is, like, if it was something that happened to me at 6, I'm never going to be a 6-year-old who doesn't have agency in the world again. So I don't actually have to know the details. And so oftentimes when we get to a point like this, when I'm working with clients, like, well, I want to understand what's going on, what's there, and like giving ourselves permission to know we don't have to know those details in order to create transformation and healing.
Yes. And I often say, I'm older now and I don't have to do that again. And
Yeah.
and it gets them present with the truth about where they are now because they have
Yep.
regressed emotionally. Now they are 6. They feel 6.
Yep.
But it's like, oh, that was then, this is now, is
Yeah.
very, very important. So back here, I still feel uncomfortable
I still feel uncomfortable.
because I still think they're going to take it away.
I still think they're going to take it away.
I remember how painful that was.
I remember how painful that was.
And that's what I've been trying to protect myself from.
And that's what I've been trying to protect myself against.
But it's not going to happen again
But it's not going to happen again
because I'm different and older.
because I'm different and older.
I have control over my life now.
I have control over my life now.
What if I let go of this fear and this belief?
What if I let go of this fear and this belief?
Eyebrow, what if I let go?
What if I let go?
What if I took off that lid?
What if I took off that lid?
Because that's not going to happen again.
Because that's not going to happen again.
But it was painful back then.
But it was painful back then.
And I acknowledge that.
And I acknowledge that.
And I validate that.
I validate that.
But that's not going to happen again.
But that's not going to happen again.
But I appreciate how I've been trying to protect myself.
But I appreciate how I've been trying to protect myself. And so that part, like all of those things, it's going, maybe. It's not going no. And it's not going, yes, we're all in. But it's like, oh, okay, maybe that's a possibility. And so again, there's this sense of like, it's still something that is real and significant, but it's smaller and like the edges of it are less defined.
Yes.
It doesn't feel as crisp.
Even though I'm still afraid to let go of what happened.
Even though I'm still afraid to let go of what happened.
What if it happens again?
What if it happens again?
I accept who I am and how I feel.
I accept who I am and how I feel.
Even though a part of me is still afraid to let it go.
Even though there's a part of me that's still afraid to let it go.
Maybe I made a vow back then.
Maybe I made a vow back then.
To never be that successful.
To never be that successful.
I accept who I am and how I feel.
I accept who I am and how I feel.
The truth is, I am afraid it could happen again.
The truth is, I'm afraid it could happen again.
Not likely.
Not likely.
But it's possible.
But it's possible.
But I'm almost ready to let it go.
But I'm almost ready to let it go.
I'm considering letting go of the belief that it's dangerous.
I'm considering letting go of the belief that it's dangerous.
I'm considering moving forward anyway.
I'm considering moving forward anyway.
And I appreciate my body for holding on to this fear.
And I appreciate my body for holding on to this fear.
Because it was just trying to help me.
Because it was just trying to help me.
Deep breath.
And so now it's like nebulous. Like it's something that's there, but it's not defined. It's not holding back. It's kind of like there's still a sensation, but like there's almost that younger version's distant. Not that I'm not caring about it, but it's not like taking up space emotionally and intention as I tune into all of this. And then the other thing is like the entire body feels lighter. Not just here, but I'm also noticing, I was carrying some tension here, and I'm carrying some tension in my lower back. And both of those have lightened as well, even though that was not the intention of where we were, but obviously it was all connected inside of that.
And what I love is we don't know what we don't know until someone asks us a question and we go, didn't consider that. So you've been carrying it around. We've all been carrying around a zillion things, right? You've been carrying it around, watching your behavior, maybe just sensing that you have some kind of comfort zone, some kind of lid on you. And then it's like, oh, here it is. For the beginners, there's lots of beginners watching, right? We're saying different phrases. You can learn EFT and say the same thing. I'm afraid to be successful. I'm afraid to be successful. I'm afraid. But for me and for you, it's easier to just kind of go with it, see what's happening. Right? We're not making assumptions. We're just saying, I think this is probably going on. And then the story just unfolds like that instead of saying the same thing.
These are the facts as I perceive them. This is how I feel about them. These are the facts as I perceive them. This is how I feel about them. And, I like for me, like I'm always encouraging folks at the beginning. It's like, imagine you're just talking to a friend over coffee and you're catching up and you're bare in your soul. What would you be saying to them? That's a great part for us to enter into all of this. No, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Another thing about beliefs. So feelings are so easy to measure. So someone's afraid at an 8, looking out the window, they have a fear of, then they go down to a 6, then they go down to a 4. With a belief, it's often interesting to watch your behavior later start to change.
That's right.
It's not as distinct as, oh my gosh, when I think of that incident, I feel afraid. Now I'm down to a 4. A belief is different because it's so involved in our lives.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to wait a day or 2, a week or a month, and we say, that is so strange. I think I'm behaving differently now. And we reconnect it. It's just not so distinct, is what I want to say.
And as you say that, like there's like, it's amazing that we can construct experiences and get the emotional response inside of our mind in a setting like this, but we can't construct all of the aspects. And when I'm working with clients who are trying to change action, not like when we're trying to clear a past trauma, we're trying to change action. I like to do shorter sessions more frequently because I want the data of the real world. Like, what's the proof that I would know that I've gotten over this? Okay. These are the things that would change in my life. These are the actions. These are the outcomes. Great. Yes. Go live your life. Take some notes. We come back to it a week later and we go, great. Okay. How are you acting similar and different? How consistently are you acting versus before? And just kind of getting a measure of all of that. And, in some ways, what I think is useful and sometimes we miss because like a lot of us tap for emotional first aid. I'm frustrated. I'm scared. I want to calm that down in the moment. Yes. What we're talking about here is how we're showing up in the world, how we're acting, what is showing up, how we feel in our body and that sort of stuff. Yes. And so sometimes the baseline, we have to have a baseline to start. Like what don't you like right now? What is the thing that is unsatisfying? What is the part that you want to change? So then we can do some measurement, because sometimes this change is so incremental, it's really easy to not think that we have actually made change. I actually had a client one time, we were in their 4th or 5th session, and he's like, Gene, I really appreciate the time. I always feel better, but I don't actually feel like big change is happening. I'm like, awesome. I appreciate that. Let's take a look at the intake form you filled out. And it wasn't me taking notes. This was them typing into a Google document before we got on our first call. I read it back to him. He goes, oh, I was just exaggerating. It never happened. Like he called himself a liar because the new normal felt so natural. It was unbelievable to him. He was stuck.
Yes.
And so as we're gauging and are working through this, it's good for us to measuring, because it's easier for us to be able to celebrate. Because if I don't recognize the success, I'm going to dismiss the tool. I'm going to dismiss the process. I'm going to miss out on opportunities as I'm engaging with this.
And even when you said, that's interesting, my back and my shoulders feel a little lighter, and that wasn't the intention, that wasn't on the table. Even that is to be celebrated.
Yes.
Even that is, isn't that interesting? Well, thank you. That's good. Thank you, tapping. That's really good for us. So
Yeah. I mean,
anything connected. So body, mind, thoughts, feelings, the past event, the future event, all of that is part of the package.
yeah. I mean, happiness is outcome divided by expectation. And if I'm expecting to have this thing completely transformed and I don't reach that, I'm going to be disappointed. Yeah, I work a fair bit with families who have children who have been diagnosed on the autism spectrum, and teach a lot of surrogate tapping around substance sensitivities. And I always say, the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to spend 7 minutes every morning intensely thinking loving, healing thoughts about your children.
Yes.
And so I'm establishing the baseline at we win. Like, yes, I know you want them to change and how they eat and how they interact in the world. And that is our goal inside of all of this. But let's start with the first victory and let's celebrate that first victory.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Anytime I have a client say something positive, like, awesome, great. Like, it's just my neat, like I'm like giving them a cookie. I'm affirming them, saying, yes, this is so good. I'm so proud of you. Let's do that thing, which makes it easier for them to recognize it going forward. And so for those of you who are working with clients, it's not just great that we're aware of it. Highlight it for your clients. Teach them how to celebrate those small things, because it makes it easier for them to do that when they're tapping on their own and when we're tapping with them.
And did you do your tapping this week is incredible information. When they say, oh, that's funny, I got a little busy. Or they say,
Yeah.
I don't feel so much of a difference, but I did it 4 days a week. Fantastic.
Yep, absolutely.
How are you feeling, Jean, now about the topic? I'm afraid of success, and I'm convinced that if I get it, it'll be taken away, and that'll be painful. That's really what.
So it feels significantly lighter. And I'm a person that never taps, where I'm very, very far from a pen. I know the couple of tail enders that I need to grab onto. As we roll into break after this, I'm going to be scribbling them down so I don't lose them. But it's something that feels lighter. If it was a 6, it kind of went 6, 8, and it's back down at like a 2, 2.5. There's still work to be done, but tapping in a general way, like we're doing here, because we're doing something publicly, that's 25 minutes of tapping super well spent.
Awesome. Awesome. And that's what I mean about unlock your abundance, in the title. Yeah. It's there. That vibration of abundance is there, but not if you're uptight, upset, and worried about becoming successful because they could take it away again. Those are my favorite words, because that we discussed. The word again, right? Yeah. It could happen again. So we might feel pretty good. A lot of people feel pretty good. Okay. Not fabulous. They're not wonderful, but they feel pretty good. Well, wouldn't you want to feel better? Like even the shoulders and the back and the fog is lifting, and that thing in front of me that I didn't even know was there isn't there anymore. Yeah.
One of the analogies I've been using a lot with my clients is I'm carrying around a backpack full of bricks. And those bricks are impacting everything that I'm doing, even if I don't know how many bricks, I don't know how big the bricks are, but carrying those bricks are impacting everything else that I'm doing, because they're just with me all the time, even if it doesn't impact directly what's in front of me. And each time we're doing this, we're taking some of those bricks and rocks out of the backpack, which make what's in front of me easier, even if, again, they had nothing to do with what's in front of me, because we're transforming the resource state.
Absolutely. Brick by brick, one brick at a time.
Absolutely. Awesomeness. Well, as always, Carol, thank you very much for your time and your thoughtfulness. It just means the world that you're willing to show up like this.
Thank you, Jean. Love being with you always.
If you found this interview inspiring, I would encourage you to support the Peaceful Heart Network by going to 24hoursoftapping.com/support or clicking the link in the description. And you will see on the screen right now a playlist to all of the interviews from this year's and last year's 24 Hours of Tapping. I hope you enjoyed those as well.